In this video, we are going to use the factor theorem. The factor theorem is an easy way of finding out a factor of a polynomial. So the factor theorem says that if x minus 2 is a factor, then if we substitute in 2, what makes it 0, if we substitute in 2, then we would get an answer equal to 0. So if it is a factor, 2 squared minus 9 times 2 plus 14 will be equal to 0. And we can do this in our heads if we want. 2 squared is 4. Take away 18 is negative 14 plus 14 equals 0. So because 2 makes this equal to 0, x minus 2 must be a factor. And we know this as well because we could just factorize. It's a quadratic. So x in both brackets, what multiplies to make 14 adds to make negative 9. It's negative 7 and negative 2. So these are the two factors, x minus 7 and x minus 2. These two brackets are the two factors. And that means the things that make it equal to 0 are 7 and 2. So if we substitute in 7 or 2, we get 0. The second one, use the factor theorem to show that x plus 3 is a factor of 2x cubed plus 6x squared minus 5x minus 15. So if x plus 3 is a factor, that means we can substitute in negative 3, so the thing that makes it 0. So if we're substituting negative 3, we should get 0. And if we do, then that means it is a factor. And I'll use the calculator this time. So 2 times negative 3 cubed plus 6 times negative 3 squared minus 5 times negative 3 minus 15. And we get 0. So it is a factor. So we don't need to go through the whole process of factorizing. We can find a factor by substituting in the number that makes it 0. One for you to try. So give that one a go. So if x minus 5 is a factor of x cubed minus 3x squared minus 10x, if it is a factor, then if we substitute in 5, we should get 0. And that's what the factor theorem says. So substitute in 5, and you'll get 0 if it is a factor. So if 5 cubed minus 3 times 5 squared minus 10 fives, if this gives us an answer of 0, then it is a factor. So 5 cubed minus 3 times 5 squared minus 10 fives. It gives us an answer of 0. So it is a factor. Use the factor theorem to show that x plus 1 is a factor of x cubed minus 6x squared plus 5x plus 12, and hence factorize the expression completely. So we're going to factorize this cubic, and we have to first show that that is a factor. One of the brackets is x plus 1. And to show it's a factor, we have to substitute in negative 1. If negative 1 gives an answer of 0, then it is a factor. So negative 1 cubed minus 6 times negative 1 squared plus 5 negative 1s plus 12. That's negative 1. Take away 6, negative 7. Take away 5, negative 12 plus 12. It equals 0. Therefore, it is a factor. So now we know one of the brackets is x plus 1. We can use long division to find out, to divide by x plus 1 and see what's left. So long division, the first step, divide x cubed by the first term of what we're dividing by, which is x. X cubed divided by x is x squared. Then times by the x squared. So x times x squared is x cubed. 1 times x squared is x squared. Then we take away. X cubed take away x cubed goes. Negative 6x squared, take away another x squared, will be negative 7x squared, and bring down the next term. Negative 7x squared over x is negative 7x, times by negative 7x, so negative 7x squared minus 7x. Take away. So 5 minus minus 7 will be 12. Bring down the next term, so 12x. Bring down the next term, so 12x plus 12. 12x over x is 12. And when we take away now, there's nothing left. So it is a factor. Because it's a factor, there will always be no remainder. So we have x cubed. So x cubed minus 6x squared plus 5x plus 12. We can rewrite it as x plus 1 times x squared minus 7x plus 12. So if I expand these brackets, I go back to the cubic. I don't want to do that. I want to factorize again. So I'm going to put x squared minus 7x plus 12 into two brackets. What multiplies to give a positive 12 and adds to make a negative 7? That would be negative 3 and negative 4. So that is factorized completely. One for you to try. Give it a go. So firstly, use the factor theorem to show that x minus 2 is a factor. To do that, we substitute in 2. And it is a factor if it gives us an answer of 0. So substitute in 2 first. So 2 cubed, which is 8, minus 2 times 2 squared, 8, that'd be 8 minus 8, which is 0, minus 16 twos, minus 32, plus 32, that does equal 0, so it is a factor. Hence factorized completely. So let's divide by the x minus 2. So we see what we multiply x minus 2 by to get x cubed minus 2x squared minus 16x plus 32. X cubed over x is x squared, times by the x squared. That's x cubed minus 2x squared. So when we take away, we get 0 here. So bring down the next 2. Negative 16x over x is negative 16. And then times by the negative 16. And we've got nothing left. So we have x minus 2 times x squared minus 16. And we can factorize again. We've got the difference of two squares. So we can have x minus 2 times x plus 4 times x minus 4. X squared minus 16 is x plus 4 times x minus 4. So that is factorized completely. This question just says factorize completely. It's given us no clue. It's not saying show something using the factor theorem, but this is an example of where we can use the factor theorem. So we need to find a factor. We need to find something that makes it equal to 0. So we could just try different numbers. So let's have 3 times something cubed minus 17 times something squared plus 18 times something plus 8. And if we substitute different numbers in for the something, so if I tried a 1, you can see I get 12. So it's not equal to 0. So x minus 1 isn't a factor. How about a 2? So if I put a 2 in, if I substitute 2 in, I get 0. So that means, so I write my working, 3 times 2 cubed minus 17 times 2 squared plus 18 times 2 plus 8 equals 0. So 2 makes it equal to 0. So x minus 2 is the factor. X minus 2 is a factor. Is a factor. So if I divide by x minus 2, I can find out what's left. So 3x cubed minus 17x squared plus 18x plus 8 divided by x minus 2. We can use the long division. So 3x cubed over x is 3x squared. 3x squared times x is 3x cubed. 3x squared times negative 2 is negative 6x squared. Take away. The 3x cubes go. We've got negative 17 plus 6, which means negative 11x squared. Bring down the 18x. Negative 11x squared over x is negative 11x times by negative 11x. That's negative 11x squared plus 22x. Take away. So the negative 11x squareds go. 18 take away 22. That's negative 4. Negative 4x. Bring down the 8. Negative 4x over x is negative 4. Negative 4. And if I times by that, I get no remainder. And I should get no remainder because I know x minus 2 is a factor. So we have x minus 2 times 3x squared minus 11x minus 4. I want to factorize the quadratic again. So I'll do a times c, 3 times negative 4, which is negative 12. What multiplies to make a 12? So 1 12, that will give me an 11. 2 6s won't, 3 4s won't. So I want the 1 and 12. So I'm going to rewrite it. 3x squared. I want plus 1x minus 12x minus 4. So I've rewritten negative 11x as 1x take away 12x. So now I can just put them into brackets. What can I take out of the first two terms? They've both got an x in them. So x must be the first term. X times something is 3x squared. That's 3x. X times something is x. That's 1. Something times 3x is negative 12x. That's negative 4. And negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. So that's factorized completely. One for you to try. Give it a go. So the first thing you need to do is find a factor using the factor theorem. So find out what you have to substitute in for x to make it 0. So you can start with 1, which isn't going to work. That's negative 12, that's no good. We can try 2. That's 20, that's no good. I'm going to try 3 as well. If that doesn't work, I'll probably try -3, -2, and -1 before I try anything else. That's 90, so that's no good. Let's try -3. That's 0. So let's write my working down. So -3 makes it 0. So 2 times -3 cubed plus 7 times -3 squared minus 3 -3's minus 18 equals 0. So if -3 makes it equal to 0, that means x plus 3 is a factor. Then I can divide by x plus 3. So x plus 3 on the outside. Inside, I've got 2x cubed plus 7x squared minus 3x minus 18. 2x cubed over x, 2x squared, times by 2x squared. That's 2x cubed plus 6x squareds. Take away 7x squared, take away 6x squared is just x squared, and bring down the next term. X squared over x is x, and then times by x. X times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. Take away. -3 take away another 3 is -6x. Bring down the -18. -6x over x is -6. And that leaves us with no remainder because x plus 3 is a factor. So we have x plus 3 times 2x squared plus x minus 6. I need to factorize the quadratic. I'll do a times c again. 2 6's or 2 -6's and -12. What multiplies to make 12? 1 12, 2 6's and 3 4's. They need to add to make a 1. So it's got to be the 3 and the 4. So I've got x plus 3 times 2x squared. I want a positive 1. So I'm going to have plus 4x minus 3x minus 6. And then it's going to go into brackets. What can I take out of the first two terms? That's 2x. So they've got a 2 in and an x in. If I was just factorizing the first two, I would bring out 2x. So 2x must be the first term. 2x times something is 2x squared. That's x. 2x times something is 4x. That's 2. Something times x is -3x. That's -3. And -3 times +2 is -6. So we have factorized completely. This question says sketch the graph. So sketch the graph of y equals 2x cubed minus 9x squared minus 6x plus 5. To sketch a graph, I need to know where it crosses the x-axis and where it crosses the y-axis. So I know it crosses y when x equals 0. So when x equals 0, y is going to be 5. So it's going to cross the y-axis at 5. But to know where it crosses the x-axis when y is 0, I'm going to need to factorize this. I'm going to need to put it into brackets. So I'm going to find a factor. So I'm going to use the factor theorem. So I've got 2 times something cubed minus 9 times something squared minus 6 times something plus 5. I know 1's not going to work. I've got a 5 here, so I'm going to try -1. So I want to put in factors of 5 into here, really. So -1 works. So 2 times -1 cubed minus 9 times negative 1 squared minus 6 times negative 1 plus 5 equals 0. So that means x plus 1 is a factor. I can use long division now. So x plus 1 and 2x cubed minus 9x squared minus 6x plus 5. 2x cubed over x is 2x squared times by 2x squared. So 2x cubed 1 times 2x squared is 2x squared. Take away. Negative 9 take away 2 is negative 11. I've got negative 11x squared. Bring down the next term. Negative 11x squared over x will be negative 11x times by the negative 11x. That's negative 11x squared minus 11x. Take away. Negative 6 plus 11 is going to be 5. And 5x over x is 5 times by the 5. And I will get, take away, I get 0 because there's no remainder. X plus 1 is a factor. So I've got x plus 1 times 2x squared minus 11x plus 5. A times c is 10. What multiplies to make 10 and adds to make negative 11? It's going to be 1 and 10. So 2x squared, it's going to be minus x minus another 10x. So what can I take out the first two terms? They've both got an x in them. So x comes out. X is the first term in the first bracket. X times 2x is 2x squared. X times negative 1 is minus x. Negative 5 times 2x is negative 10x. And negative 5 times negative 1 is 5. So now I can say it crosses when y equals 0. I'm going to have x plus 1 times x minus 5 times 2x minus 1 equals 0. So x is negative 1, positive 5, and a half. I know what I need to know to sketch the graph. So I've got, when x is 0, y is 5. So it's crossing y at 5. It's crossing x at negative 1, a half, and 5. And it's a positive cubic. So up from the bottom, down through at a half, and then back up at 5. And one for you to try. Give that one a go. So the first thing we want to do is find a factor. Well, we could say, firstly, it crosses the y when x is 0. So when x equals 0, y is negative 24. But to factorize it, to find out where it crosses the x-axis, we need to find a factor. So we've got x cubed, something cubed, minus 9 times something squared, plus 26 times something, minus 24. So we can try 1, negative 1, 2, negative 2, 3, negative 3, and so on. Let's try negative 1 first. So that's negative 60, that's not good. Negative 2. Negative 120. Negative 3. negative 200. Let's go to positive 3. 0. So positive 3 makes it 0. So x minus 3 is a factor. So 3 cubed minus 9 times 3 squared plus 26 3's minus 24 equals 0. Therefore, x minus 3 is a factor. So x minus 3 is a factor. Let's use long division. You could, of course, just try and find 3 factors. So you found the first one, and then 24 divided by 3 is 8, positive 8. So you could try finding 2 more factors using that. But let's do the long division for now. X cubed over x, x squared, times by x squared, take away. Negative 9 plus 3 is negative 6. Bring down the next term. Negative 6x squared over x is negative 6x. Times by negative 6x. Take away. So that's 8x. Bring down the last term. And 8x over x is 8. Positive 8. And then times by the 8. And we've got no remainder because it is a factor. X minus 3 times x squared minus 6x plus 8. So we can factorize again. That's x minus 2, x minus 4. So we've got x equals 3, 2, 2, 3, and 4. X equals 2, 3, and 4. So again, we've got a positive cubic. Positive cubic. It crosses at 2, 3, and 4. Space them out a bit better. 2, 3, and 4. It crosses the y-axis at negative 24. That'll be a long way down. 2, 3, 4. And it's a cubic shape. So it's going to come up, down, up. So that is our sketch. Given that x plus 2 is a factor of 4x cubed plus 8x squared plus bx minus 2, find the value of b. So the factor theorem tells us that if x plus 2 is a factor, if we substitute in negative 2, substitute in what makes the bracket 0, negative 2, it will be equal to 0. So 4 times negative 2 cubed plus 8 times negative 2 squared plus b times negative 2 minus 2 will be equal to 0. So now we can just solve this and find out what b is. So what is 4 times negative 2 cubed plus 8 times negative 2 squared minus 2? So that's, I'm leaving the b times negative 2 out. That's minus 2. So minus 2 plus minus 2b equals 0. So if I plus 2 to both sides, minus 2b equals 2. Divide both sides by negative 2. B must be negative 1. One for you to try. Give it a go. So given that x minus 3 is a factor of 2x cubed minus 5x squared minus 6x plus a, find the value of a. So if x minus 3 is a factor, 3, if I substitute 3 in for x, it will be worth 0. And again, I'm just going to use the calculator. So I'm going to have 2 times 3 cubed minus 5 times 3 squared minus 6 threes. So that's negative 9. So negative 9 plus a equals 0. Plus 9 to both sides. A must be 9.